I'm in flow mode today. Welcome to OMG Real Talk. And you are here with moi. And as always, your girl is Flossom. Yes, I am. And today we are going to be talking about real life, things that happen, things that many of us encounter. And I want to stress in the capacity of how we encounter it. How we encounter it oftentimes in a spiritual setting. So in a faith-based setting as well, that we often don't like to talk about. We don't want anyone to know, and we keep that hush hush. And that's how people are not being held accountable. But before I get there, I want to introduce, because I know you can see a beautiful lady on the screen, and I would like her to introduce herself to you before I give you my joke for the week. And I know you guys know what I'm going to say, but go ahead, beautiful lady.
Hi everyone, my name is Lorraine Anderson Reed. I'm really glad to be here today with Anna Miss Hayne. So thanks for inviting me. I run a project called the Never Project. Never stands for No Excuse for Violence or Abuse. And it's where we educate individuals on what domestic abuse is, and not only domestic abuse, but all of its surrounding topics. So you have sexual violence, stalking and harassment, child sexual exploitation, forced marriage, honor-based violence, female genital mutilation. So you can see it's quite a lot of things. But that's what I do. I'm really passionate about prevention work in this area. I know that it's really important to support victims and to hold perpetrators to account, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, within the hour. But one of my passions is making sure that someone doesn't even get to the point where they're abusing someone else. Making sure someone's at a point where they're not going to be a victim. What else can I say about myself, Anna? I'm a Christian. I'm the wife of a wonderful man called Maurice Reed. I love to sing. I love ballroom dancing. I don't know what else to say.
You see, I didn't know that. She likes ballroom dancing. I love it.
I must say I'm a Strictly fan. Super fan. So yeah.
Okay, so she'll be twirling around in her little thing.
Trust me.
Well, we are so happy to have you today. And even though, I just want to say now there are things that we may talk about that may trigger. And so I just want to, forewarn you if that is the case. Otherwise, though, this is something, if you think you may know somebody, or if you are aware of someone, we will give you the guidance and even signpost you to where you can find support for that individual. So what is my joke for the week? Okay, so everybody, I am sure everybody, I'm just going to say, because some people, it may not be of an interest, watch the inauguration. Yes, you did. I know you did. Don't try and fake it. You watched the inauguration. Yes, you did. And everybody, first and foremost, was talking about the Democratic outfits. Let's put it in that sense. So, we had, of course, Miss Jill Biden. She looked lovely. And then, of course, we had, Hillary Clinton. She looks nice. And then, we had like J-Lo, Lady Gaga, and then, I saved the best for last, girls. Michelle Obama. Yes, she did. She came out and she did her thing. Her hair was on fleek, the outfit, everything. I was like, that's a sister for you. And then, of course, you had Camilla. Yeah, whatever. Michelle rocked it. She just made you know she's still first lady, booze. But who stole the show for the inauguration? Drum roll, please. Bernie and those gloves. Bernie Sanders stole the show with those mittens. I was like, Lord, did he not know that he could have at least come with a better outfit? I said, have mercy. I was dying, and the memes and the things that I have got are so hilarious. Oh my God, I love it. So yeah, Bernie stole the show for me for the inauguration. I don't care what anyone says. he rocked, and he just kicked butt today. So you go, Bernie. Um, so yeah, sorry, that's me being silly. I do. He was hilarious. I don't care. It was funny. But yes. So putting all fun and joke aside, we're gonna see, because we all watch this space, what's gonna happen and transpire with the United States in this time. And unfortunately, I think whichever government it would have been, Republican or Democrat, because of the pandemic, it makes life harder. It would not have been it's not going to be an easy, transition and going into all this stuff. But all I gotta say is, you rock, Bernie. You rock. You make buttons look good. We love you. So yeah, that's my plug for Bernie.
I must say thank you for telling me about that, because I didn't actually know about the whole Bernie Sanders joke. So I had to look it up before we came online.
You know what, right? I have had so many memes. I have had pictures. I have a fantastic picture. Somebody actually went through the time to knit a whole crochet body of the whole thing, the whole scene of him sitting cross-legged with his gut. It's brilliant. But I was like, you're doing too much. You idle. You need to go. You mess with me not working. You need a new job. So, but yeah, so that was the funny part for me. There's nothing really entertaining over here on the UK side. No, just Boris and his minions still locking us out. Oh, we did have snow today, guys, though. We did have snow. So yes. Do I want to build a snowman? No, I don't, because I'm not into Frozen. Hello. So for all of you who were out there building your snowman, if you want to send me a picture of your best snowman, feel free, and I will just wave at it from a distance. Yay! Okay, so now we've messed about and done all the silly stuff. Let's get down to real life. And real life, sometimes I can tell you, can suck. I'm gonna keep it real. There's some situations that we end up encountering that really put us in, a predicament or a struggle, and it's not easy. But over time, hey guys, you can overcome. And this is what this is about. This is about us overcoming and becoming we're not victims, we're survivors. We are flawsome. Okay. And it's through these challenges and of getting from that stage, especially when you're in fear, to now getting to the part where you are in strength and you are able to even talk about it. Sometimes just being able to vocalize the trauma that you have encountered can really have such a difference on your life. And that's why, as many of you know, I am an advocate for stop the abuse, domestic violence, sexual abuse and molestation. These things need to stop. There are other forms of abuse, but we just encompassing it under that. And that's my thing. Stop the abuse, okay? And especially in our faith-based settings where we don't want to speak it out loud because we want it to be held hush-hush and under the carpet. So I am here to encourage everyone to speak their truth to empowerment. You will be amazed at how free you will become when you speak your truth. So let's go. I shared about 2 weeks now my story. So I do this segment now, what's your story? So I thought before I can ask anyone else, share mine. And so I shared my story. And I don't think actually Lorraine, even though she'd worked with me previously, even had a clue about what my story was. So when she now heard about it, she was like, oh my goodness. But yeah, so we're going to go through some of those about the fear, about living in constant fear, about the stalking, the differences and harassment, because there is a difference, what things you can do or start to do to protect you and while you are in that challenging situation. So, I'm going to let Lorraine go and ask me so that then we can share with you. Okay, so go for it, Lorraine.
Lovely. I thought it would be good to just start with a definition of domestic abuse first. Is that okay?
Yeah, go for it.
So the UK definition that the government has at the moment is any incident or pattern of incidents of controlling, coercive, or threatening behavior, violence, or abuse between those aged 16 or over who are or have been intimate partners or family members, regardless of gender or sexuality.
Right.
So this also includes honor-based violence, female genital mutilation, and forced marriage, but those are also big topics within
Yeah.
themselves.
She's going to look at enough and say.
Yeah. So I thought it would be good just to give the definition, because some people, there are different definitions of domestic abuse that people hold in their minds. Some people think it's just something that happens between married people who live under the same roof,
Right.
And they don't realize, well, actually, it's between family members. It's between, if you're just dating, you don't have to be married, you don't have to be living together. So it's really important just to remind everybody of the definition.
And I just wanted to jump in there. I know that many people don't recognize it, but we also have teen violence now. That has been a recognized abuse as well. So now we have so many teenagers that are, in relationships, supposedly boyfriend, girlfriend, but they are being abused, even as well sibling abuse. So that's another thing that people are not realizing. So it stems from teenagers right up, and it doesn't matter who it is, where it is. No, it is wrong.
Exactly. Absolutely. And that reminds me, Anastasia, that the fact that the definition mentions the age 16, this was added in 2012. And that's because people started to recognize that young people actually experience domestic abuse as well, and they wanted young people to look at this definition and realize that it could be for them. This wasn't just adults, it can actually relate to young people. But you're right, like I've worked with lots of young people who are in abusive relationships, for sure.
Yeah, it's a sad situation, and that's actually where my abuse started, with the domestic violence as a teenager. That didn't start in my adulthood. I was still a teenager when I experienced domestic violence. So, and it definitely wasn't looked at in that way then, even though I still feel like a teenager. I'm just putting that out there. Yeah. But yeah, so go ahead, sweetie. Let's ask me so we can help them. Go for it.
So I was actually going to take you back a little bit to the first part of your story, when you were a child. Is that okay?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. So listening to your story, one of the things that came to mind was the fact that a lot of people may have myths about sexual abuse. And obviously for you, in your story, you mentioned that it was your uncle.
Yes. And
it just reminded me that, the majority of sexual abuse is actually done by somebody that we know. So 90% of rape victims knew the person that raped them. So there's a lot of myths about sexual abuse, or certain it happens with strangers or in a dark alleyway or whatever it is. But many people don't know the majority of it happens to people that you know. Yeah, exactly. And I was just wondering how you felt about the fact that you weren't with your mum, and you were raised by another family member. And I started to think about different cultures and how sometimes that can happen, especially back in the day. You know, as a child, you might be taken to live with another family member. Do you feel that if you were with your parents, that something like this wouldn't have happened, or?
I think when I was younger, I definitely used to think, it was more an abandonment thought process. Like, you don't want me. Why don't you want me? That's why you keep sending me away. And then you're sending me away, and then you're sending me away into hell. So it was like, so you don't want me. I'm not good enough for you. And now you're sending me into hell. That's even more, So the mix up, but the one foundation for me in the madness was my aunt. My aunt's love for me was what kept me, what saved me. It was like a blanket for me. And I knew that whatever she did, it was always for my good. Now, I don't think, as I said, I don't recall any form of abuse up until that first night with Storm. But I cannot say if something happened before. And I remember one day, as I said, when he was telling me off because I was being like cheeky or whatever, and he was like, oh, you know, I used to change your diapers and whatever. And I just went through it like, oh my God, you mean you could have been abusing me when I was a baby? Oh my God. I was just like freaking out. He had he didn't mean anything in that way at the time. He was just saying, you know, you must have manners. I know you have been changing your diaper, but for me, that was like you've been violating me.
Exactly. That's really interesting. Your thought process. It's interesting your thought process because for someone who wasn't in that situation, it would just be an uncle telling them off for being too rank.
Right.
But for you, your thought process took you somewhere completely different. You were just like, well, you know, were you troubling me when you're changing my nappy? That's just nastiness. So it's really interesting, you know, the different scenarios and, you know, different situations that arise can cause us to think certain ways. But I was also reminded of the fact that, you know, as you said, that your aunt was that kind of grounding factor, that person that you felt that loved you, that had your back. It just made me realize that, you know, when it comes to disclosing abuse, it can be a really tough thing to do. And not everyone has that person that they feel that they can tell. So the fact that you had that person is really key. And sometimes I tell people, think about someone who you would share something so personal with. Think about the qualities that person has and why you will tell them. And then I tell them to try and be that person for someone else if you can. Because it's really difficult to share abuse that's happened.
Yeah, that's why I'm such an advocate for this. You know, even though I worked in the legal profession and supported women in this area, I still feel, I think when I remember one case where the woman just felt like she was so alone. And I think I still hadn't got to that place yet where I am now, where I can be so open and so vocal. But I could see she was so broken. And the only way for her to understand was I had to share my story with her. And when I started to speak to her and she looked at me and she was like, oh my gosh, you do understand. Like, how did that feel? Like, I said, listen, if you've had somebody hold you in your neck, if you've had somebody, you know, do ever, trust me, you understand, you know, I get it, you know, it's not, and that's when, and I was like, but how much do you want to be free? And that was my question. Like, this is a serious thing. Like, oh, there we're having a techno hitch. I'm going to try and do this very discreetly. How much do you want to be free? You know, how much do you really want to save your family? You know, and she was like, I really want to. And so we talk about it, and praise God, I managed to get her to, oops, sorry, the thing's about to, I didn't sort my lights out. Naughty me. See, this is real life. Right? And so that was a way that I started to see I needed to be true. I needed to, no problem, sweetie, needed to be true, needed to be genuine, needed to really be open about this. But until you can be honest with what has happened to you, like, okay, a prime example, when you first, and I was listening to some ladies yesterday and I was so proud of them because they were very open about the abuse they experienced. And they said, when you get that first hit, that first slap, that first whatever, you kind of go into like, did that really just happen? Like, no, maybe that didn't happen, you know. It's imagination. And then they tell you, oh, I'm so sorry, I love you, that's never gonna happen again, hush, you know, do whatever. And then you put on the dark glasses and you're like, okay, maybe it was just my imagination.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
you forgive them because they love you and
Yeah.
they don't mean it. And it was just a slip. Maybe
Yeah.
they had a job issue or, something at work, whatever.
Yeah.
But then it happens again.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, now hold on. The last time you said it was because of this and you're sorry. What is it now? But through this process, you don't tell anybody. Because
Mm.
even the first time you're in a state of shock that you've
Mm-hmm.
been hit. So then you keep that private because who wants anyone to know that
Exactly.
they got slapped up, they got
Yeah.
beaten, they got burned, they got violated? Nobody, you don't discuss that. This is not
Yeah.
the topic of conversation that we go and have over a coffee at Starbucks.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what you do.
Yeah.
So you will go out with your girlfriends or with your friend or even out of the job, and they'll say,
Mm.
"Hey, is everything okay? Yeah, I'm fine. I hit the door when I was cleaning." So you start lying.
Yeah. And
You
sometimes if we're not clued up about domestic abuse, then we're not able to spot the signs. So, if
right,
someone says, "Oh yeah, I walked into the door," if you know about domestic abuse, then you will start to think all other things. Perhaps it wasn't the door, and you'll perhaps start to notice different behaviors.
hmm
And that's one of the ways you can actually help if you actually know about what's happening in terms of how domestic abuse works. So
right,
you bringing that up actually reminds me of the cycle of abuse.
right.
So it's usually described in four parts. So
hmm
if you can imagine a circle, just a never-ending circle, it just keeps going round and round. At the beginning, you've got tension building. So
Right,
this is where you can feel something isn't too right. You know there's tension between you and your partner or ex-partner or family member or whatever it is. There's a breakdown in communication.
right.
You become quite fearful. You feel as though you need to walk on eggshells. I don't know if you've heard of that terminology before. You feel
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you're on eggshells.
You just don't want to trigger
Yes, exactly.
that
So there
tension.
you have tension building.
Yeah,
Then the next part of the cycle is the incident actually happening. So whatever that abusive incident is, it could be emotional abuse, it could be physical abuse, like you
right.
mentioned, being slapped up. Um, so that's the second part of the cycle. Then you have the third part, which is reconciliation. And
Yeah,
this is usually where the abuser apologizes. So they try to say, I'm really sorry. I was just so stressed with my job or whatever the excuse is.
yeah.
They might even blame the victim as well. Well, if you hadn't done this, then I wouldn't have reacted in this
This,
way.
yeah.
They could actually totally deny that the abuse even happened. What do you mean I
hmm
slapped you? I didn't slap you. Just totally deny it. And we think
They
that's
they gas you. They start
yeah,
making
that's
things
right.
up like you've made things up. It's in
Exactly.
your mind. It's your perception. It wasn't like that. Well, actually, my hand met your fist, but I didn't. That's the wrong perception. Oh, okay. You
Yeah,
know.
exactly, literally. And if they try to deny it completely, if they don't try to deny it completely happened, they might say it wasn't as bad as you're making out.
Right.
Or I only tapped you. I didn't
hmm
punch you. I tapped you. So reconciliation is the third part. Then you've got the fourth part, which is called the calm, or mostly recognized as the honeymoon phase.
hmm
So this is where the incident is forgotten, everyone's good, no abuse has taken place, everything's fantastic. It's almost like maybe at the beginning, like when you were first dating, everything's fine, everything's rosy. To the victim, it's absolutely amazing,
hmm
right? But if you compare it to a normal relationship, that honeymoon phase is just standard. So in a
Right.
normal relationship, the honeymoon phase is standard. Whereas in an abusive relationship, the honeymoon seems like the most amazing thing on the planet. Because if you're
Right.
used to abuse, then anything that's not abuse is gonna just be wow. You see what
Fantastic.
I mean?
Right.
So after the calm, after the honeymoon, you go right back to step one, tension building. Yeah, for whatever
There.
reason. Then you
Yeah.
just keep. Then the incident happens. Then reconciliation. Then the honeymoon, and it just goes on and on and on. And these phases, they don't necessarily have a particular time frame. It's not like, oh, one day there's tension, then day two there's the incident, then next week there's the reconciliation. These
Right.
things are just, they're fluid. So
Yeah.
you could be in one phase for months. Yeah,
hmm
you could be in the honeymoon phase for months. So it's not as simple as, oh, you're just in an abusive relationship, you need to get out of it. This can go on for years. and you're
Yeah,
not in that
I think
cycle.
that's always the question that the outside world says. They're like, why did you stay there? You know, why don't you just leave? You
Mhm,
know, just get your stuff and leave. And
mhm.
oftentimes, especially if you have been rehabilitated emotionally and mentally, you don't think you even have the value to leave. Sometimes you don't have your own money. Sometimes you know that the family's in debt, so you can't even go and get a job somewhere where you can maybe pay for rent or do whatever. You then think about the children, how you're going to pay for daycare. They
Yeah.
end up putting you in such a scenario, oftentimes, of dependence on
Mhm.
them that you feel you cannot leave that, because who's going to take that on? And then they
Exactly.
put into you that who's going to take you? No one's going to want you. You're
Mhm.
ugly. Who's going
Yeah.
to like you? You're big. You're this, and it
Yeah.
just every day wearing you down, wearing you down, wearing you down. So eventually, you don't even feel like you're your own self. You
Yeah.
don't belong to you. And that is where oftentimes the brokenness and the hurt, as well as the physical abuse. Sometimes the physical abuse would have just been, I've known cases where the physical abuse was just once, but
Mhm.
the mental and emotional abuse, because
Mhm.
that was so debilitating, they
Yeah.
didn't need to hit them again. They didn't need to touch them again. That was just, this could happen. But
Yes.
actually, I have you in your mind.
Yes. And that is really important because a lot of people don't realize that before the physical abuse starts, it's the emotional and psychological. Yeah.
Right.
So um, I currently coordinate a multi-agency risk assessment conference. So it's called a MARAC, and it's where they discuss really high-risk cases of domestic abuse.
Hmm.
And the majority of the cases that we get there, it's always started with emotional, verbal, and psychological. Yeah, and
Right.
it usually
Right.
escalates to physical. So when
Right.
if people compare physical and emotional, and they think, oh well, physical is obviously worse, emotional and psychological can be
It's
just
worse.
as, yeah,
Yeah.
can be, if not worse. The only
Yeah.
reason I'd say physical obviously trumps it is because someone can punch you and you could actually have a life-changing injury just
Well,
from.
I used to think that, but I've now realized why I say the emotional and
Mm.
mental is worse is because the physical, you can heal from that oftentimes.
Not always.
No, that's why I say oftentimes. Okay.
Oftentimes, yeah.
But that emotional and mental will carry
Mhm.
you forever, and it will can
Mhm.
go, even if you leave, you can bring it into another relationship. It can break you in such a way that your parenting, your how you socially interact,
Yeah.
everything can be impacted.
Yeah.
Hopefully you will not get damaged so that you will, be, because I know we've had broken bones, we've
Yeah.
had an eye taken out, all kinds of things. They wanted to make her, one of the cases, burnt her, or half of her, to make
Yeah.
her ugly, so that,
Yes.
no one could want her again. So trust me, I know that there is that. But even with this case, when she got away and she left, and she said she was happier to be disfigured but be free than to
Mm-hmm.
still be there and be trapped in that situation, because
Mm-hmm.
she was free from that, you
Yeah.
know. And
And
so I
and it gives them the chance to build themselves back up because for
yeah.
so long you have the voice of the abuser in your head. you
Hmm.
know when you're in an abusive relationship and you're being dominated and controlled and you're not your own person, it takes a while to recover after that. When you leave and you don't have that person like hovering over you, you have to find the skills and the strength to make your own decisions again, because
Hmm.
before someone else was making it for you. You've got
Right.
to find that value. And if you go around thinking that you're not good enough, you're not worthy, then you may take that into, not may, you will take that into your next relationship.
Right.
If you get
Right.
into one. I mean, I remember speaking to a lady who was in an abusive relationship, wasn't good at all, but she was happy because it wasn't as abusive as the one that she came out of before. Do you see what I
Yeah,
mean? And
I've encountered that as well.
yeah, so it's one of those things where you need to rebuild yourself, in order to make sure that your future relationships are going to be sound.
Right. Right. I know we were talking as well about the difference between stalking and harassment. So
Yeah. So what
for
happened with your situation?
yeah. So with me, of course, my time, remembering I'm still younger, they didn't have the diagnosis then of stalking. They never said you're being stalked,
Yeah.
but I was. No, no,
Yeah.
it never came. I think I remember it was 2002, I think, or something that they actually took into the courts to say this is the definition. This is what is happening. You know, I could go to the store or go to a location and be told I was in that location. I could
Mhm.
be told that I was seen and I had on this outfit. Why are you wearing that outfit? You,
Yeah.
and you're like, what?
Yeah.
You're like, what is this? Even though you're not together anymore and
Yeah.
you think you're free and you try to go
Yeah.
home, but no, you wake up and the person's in your house. You're like, what the? Wherever you are, whatever you will do it, they knew. It was like there was nowhere free. There was nowhere safe.
That's definitely stalking. And stalking and domestic abuse, they literally go hand in hand.
Yes.
Sexual violence as well usually goes hand in hand with domestic abuse, but
Yes.
stalking definitely. So when people say, for example, why don't you leave?
Mm-hmm.
They don't realize that
They
when
don't.
you leave, it can actually be the most dangerous time for
Mm-hmm.
the victim survivor to leave,
Yeah.
because then the abuser has nothing, they have nothing to lose.
Right.
And a lot of the domestic homicides that happen, they happen after the person has left
Mm-hmm.
or they've made the decision to leave.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that the statistic for the UK is 2 women a week are killed by their partner or ex-partner.
That's right. Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot
That's
of.
a lot of
That's,
people every week. Yeah.
yeah.
And it's
And the
increased
majority
since
of
lockdown.
those,
Since
yeah,
pandemic, it's increased. So I've been looking at those stats. I'm like, wow.
yeah,
That's one of the reasons why they're trying to keep the schools open and keep some form of normality
exactly.
for
And
vulnerable children.
the majority of those homicides have been, yeah, once the person has left.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, there was that case a couple of years ago. This young lady separated from her abusive partner, and he kept stalking her, following her, and turning up to her workplace. And then one day he turned up at the gym that she was doing a workout at. When she came out into the car park, he just stabbed her 70 plus times. And all of that was, derived from stalking and
Right.
harassment. But
Yeah.
the difference, if we look at harassment,
Mm-hmm.
the two are very similar, but
Yeah.
there's a slight difference. So harassment can be described as actions that cause alarm or distress, actions that put people in fear of violence,
Mm-hmm.
and it can include like repeated attempts of unwanted communication or contact.
Right.
And the perpetrator, should know that you don't want that contact.
Yeah.
Okay. A reasonable person would look at
Yeah.
the situation and realize, okay, you shouldn't be doing this.
Right.
Okay. Um, and some of those kind of unwanted communications could be like telephone calls, emails, text messages, stuff on social media, just like you said, following the person, turning up at their workplace, turning up in their house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Whereas stalking, they're very similar in terms of the behavior. It can be quite identical, but there's an obsession and there's a fixation there that's not
Mm-hmm.
there with harassment. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah.
So if I could give an example, I would, let's say, imagine we were neighbors,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you had a hedge growing over into my part of the garden.
Right.
And I'm knocking on your door and I'm saying, yo, listen, you need to
Cut
sort
that
out the hedge.
thing. Yeah.
That down, okay? You need to sort that out. You might just get, vexed and upset. You might start texting me or calling me. You might start being abusive towards me, threatening me, leaving trash in front of my door, whatever it is. Okay.
Right.
I then decide to move away and I
Mm-hmm.
go find my house in another place. Usually in harassment cases, that interaction
Stop.
stops.
Yeah.
I wouldn't see you again. You wouldn't see me. I'm gone. So you can grow your head as high as you want. In
Right.
a stalking situation, you would come and find me.
Yes.
Yeah, you would have some kind of obsession and a fixation that you would need to track down with my new location and continue with that behavior.
Right.
So there's a difference there, and I think it was added to the Protection from Harassment Act in 2012. I wish it was 2002, because that would have been good, but it was 2012. And the police have recognized the significance of stalking and how dangerous it actually is. So the maximum sentence used to be 5 years, and now it's 10, because they recognize the seriousness of stalking and domestic abuse together. So yeah, it definitely that was recognized before.
Yeah. I've seen some. The thing is, with harassment, you could shut it down. The unfortunate with stalking is that the person's obsessive desire to control you
Yes.
is so much that I think they lose their psyche. I actually think once they start to follow in that pattern, they lose their psyche. That is somebody that also has an imbalance. That's not the norm. Usually if someone doesn't want to be with you or not, you're like, you know what, that's your loss. Fine. Do you see what I mean? But the fact that you are determined that you are not leaving them, is because you want that control of that person and that situation.
Because it's power and control, isn't it?
Right. So it's about power and control. And so it has so many individuals in fear. You see it with celebrities. Often they, be stalked by a fan or, whatever. And then sadly you see it in these relationships. And I've even heard of a case of a stalking of a adopted parent from the child that found out about them. And they stalked the parent. At first it was, I just wanted to know why they gave them up and know a bit more about them. But then after a while, it just transpired to more things. So
stalking is a huge topic. And if you can stalk someone and it not be a domestic abuse related. There's so many there's different types of stalkers. They literally have names. Yeah, so it's quite a big it's quite a big topic.
Thing. As I said, you don't want that. Don't get that name. Don't get the stalking name. You don't want it. You don't want it. So, what are some of the things that maybe we can do now in the 21st century, especially in faith-based institutions, where we are really not acknowledging that abuse is in these institutions, whether it's in the mosque, whether it's in the synagogue, whether it's in the church? It doesn't matter what denomination. Abuse is prevalent. And I know oftentimes people just want to look at abuse as, oh, the Catholic Church, oh my goodness. No. One of the statistics that I found, which was really harrowing to me, is that it's 3 times more likely to happen. Someone is likely to be abused 3 times more in an African American or African ethnic church. That's very distressful to me. And the reason why it's said is because that's where it's least reported.
Yep. There seems to be. Yeah.
How are we gonna change this narrative? How do we get us as the congregations, as the people, to be more accountable?
Yeah, I mean, that's the age-old question, right? So I've actually recently started a Facebook group that looks at, is going to be looking at this very topic, domestic abuse and the church. It's called Hidden in Plain Sight. If I can post it somewhere in this chat, figure out how to use it, then I'll post
the link and then post it in the comments, then they can get it. Yeah.
Okay. So what I've discovered is a lot of churches don't actually want to address this situation.
Right.
And there could be a number of reasons for that. It could be because they just don't know they just don't know where to start. It's such a big topic. They don't know what to do. It could be a case that they actually are colluding with perpetrators.
Right. Yeah, especially if it's like a pastor or something like this.
Yeah, exactly.
The conference or the other pastors, they don't want it out there. That can be embarrassing. You don't want your church to be seen in that light. Whoop-de-woo-ha, get over it. If they knew that they were going to get put on blast and that it would be known that they are a perpetrator, they may think twice to do that mess.
Absolutely. I think we have this fear of being seen to be perfect, because obviously all domestic abuse just happens in the world, right? It just doesn't happen in the church because we are holy and sanctified. But we forget that obviously the community is the church. You know, the church is made up of our community and our society, and it definitely happens there. And people who experience domestic abuse in a church setting or, you know, a faith-based setting, whether they're Christians or Muslims or whatever, they are likely to be experiencing abuse in a different way. So you might have something like spiritual abuse, whereas a non-religious person will not have any experience of that. So you can see how different identities can experience abuse in different ways.
Right.
Sometimes, you know, people use the Bible to justify just foolishness.
Yeah, madness. Yes.
Yeah, and you know, the Bible does not condone abuse whatsoever. But abusers are smart. Yeah. Let's not think that they're not educated or they're stupid or whatever. They're smart. They know what they're doing. Domestic abuse is functional. You know, it's not something that, oh, I just had an angry moment and I just saw red and I lost it. Domestic abuse is functional, and abusers know that. And I'm still trying to figure out how to post this thing. So let me see.
copy and paste the URL and then put it in the chat.
I am.
So while we talk about this, one of my people, they said it's a really good conversation. So thank you. It's a matter of, we've been in this psyche through life of things that are not nice, because it's not nice. You know, it's not something that, you know, people want to overly discuss. I mean, I understand. You don't talk about it.
Yeah.
You keep that quiet. You don't discuss your dirty linen in public. Just shut your mouth. And, you know, at the end of the day, what is happening is that we are covering up. And the same thing which many people said with regards to, you know, even the things with like Breonna Taylor, you know, Floyd, all these things, your silence is actually you condoning it.
Yep.
You know, the reality is, when we stay silent, when something is wrong, when we stay silent and somebody is hurting, somebody is going through pain, someone is being violated, we are wrong. That is the truth. We're wrong. You know, it's like the perpetrator has much more grounds and standing, is being protected than the victim. Oftentimes when somebody says, you know, oh, I've been violated or or things like this, we are like, what are you talking about? No, whatever.
Yeah.
How can you say that someone's story is not real? How can you say that's not their reality?
So we don't know how to respond to disclosures of abuse. We don't know how to respond. We turn into judge and juror and all sorts in that very moment where you're trying to investigate a situation, and that's not, you know, what we are called to do. We listen to someone. If they disclose abuse, first of all, you have to know that would have been the hardest thing for them to actually do. You know,
thank you.
People don't disclose abuse because they're just like, oh yeah, well, let me just talk about this today.
Unless you're mentally ill, and then you still have a mental trauma of going through the darn abuse. So either way, it's a trauma.
It plucked up so much courage to share it with someone, and then to have a reaction that suggests, oh well, what is it really happening, or what did you do? You know, or maybe you should just pray about it more, submit more, or whatever it is. And we just don't know how to respond. And that's one of the things that I've been doing with some of the churches, is as well as talking about domestic abuse and what it is and how to recognize the signs, how do you respond when someone discloses to you? Which is really important, because if you respond in an inappropriate way, you will then shut that person down from even going forward, getting help at all. Yeah. We, as a church, as Christians, as, you know, faith people of faith, we do not have to be experts in this field. There are already experts out there. You know, they know how to support people. We don't have to feel as though we need a degree or whatever to know how to just deal with someone in love. So if you can respond in an appropriate way, and there are tips on how to do that. That's one of the things I go through, and I have a short PDF that describes that as well. If you can just do that, then that is a start.
Excellent, excellent. And I think there should be much more talks within organizations, even in the workplace, on the fact that this is an entity that will not support that. And if someone feels that this is something that they're aware of, there should be a safe space that they could come and talk and discuss that. You should not feel that if you are going to discuss something or you're going to share something in confidence, that you are going to have the fear of backlash and it goes back to the perpetrator. That's also one of the reasons why many people have said, there's no point in me saying anything because they're going to find out anyway. So, they just keep that inside, and many people suffer for years in abusive relationships for fear of it being put out there and put on blast. What are some of the challenges today that people are facing? So we're in this pandemic. How can we bring it to, Canada and New Zealand have a brilliant sign that if you have a video phone to say that you're in trouble, and it's just a simple, you put your hand up, then you put your thumb in like this, and that will show that you are in danger. So you have your hand up and you just go like that. That means you're in danger. There's nothing to say. You just, it's like that, and that's the sign. And someone, when that sign is sent out, you should know that they're in danger. Send help. So what are we doing here? What are we saying to people to, preventative and for precautions if you're in that scenario?
Yeah. So first of all, I mean, it's really important to mention that the pandemic has been absolutely just crazy for domestic abuse. I'm sure you've heard about it on the news. Victims, survivors not being able to get away from the perpetrator, whereas before they could go to work or they could go out and do whatever. In the first lockdown, they felt trapped. We saw domestic abuse just go up in terms of phone calls and police call outs. So I know one of the things that we have here in the UK is Boots. Now, I don't know if anyone goes to Boots. I'm a super drug person, but Boots, if you go into Boots and there's a code word that you can basically use, and you can ask for someone called Annie, and that is the word that the staff members know. If you say that, then you need help. You're experiencing domestic abuse, and you're there to get support ASAP. And they will take you, sit you down, talk to you, give you the help that you need, put you in contact with the right agencies and support. So that's just one of the ways. And obviously, the government are strict with all the lockdown rules and stuff, but they have made it clear that if you need to go out, if you can flee domestic abuse. They're not telling victims to stay in abusive situations. Get out of that. The lockdown doesn't apply to you in that case. Yeah.
you can come out.
Yeah, honestly, because what happens is the perpetrator has now started to use the pandemic as another form of abusing that person. So now they know the victim doesn't have access to the support that they may used to have had, so they use that against them. There was a case where the perpetrator will come in after being out all day, not following the guidelines, and then threaten to sleep in the same bed as the victim, knowing that she was vulnerable and she had health conditions. We see how they can use COVID
to manipulate you.
Exactly. So it's really important to remember that you can seek out for help. If you call 999 and you don't say anything, they will actually call back, or they will come back and check on you. They'll come to your home to check to see if everything's okay. I know some people do that. They just pick up the phone and dial, and they're just silent.
That's right.
So they'll check.
You cannot speak. Sometimes in those situations, you just manage to get those 3 numbers and you just drop the phone and you leave it. Exactly. That's all you have. That's the quickest thing, and then you let it go. And I know there's situations they will say, "Where's your phone?" They're looking for where's your phone? I know you've done with the phone. Just what I mean, because they know that's the way you can get the words out. And so you know, it's crazy. You have to start getting statistical on how to survive and how to just function from the day to day, especially when there's children involved. I know so many women that they want to protect their children, so there's certain things they have to do, or they take the beating to not let their child get the beating. I mean, wow,
it's a big problem. One of the things I would say as well, though, if you are in an abusive situation at the moment and maybe you're not ready to leave, you know, not everyone's at the same point where they're ready to leave, or if they even want to leave, for a number of reasons, you know. If you had a list of reasons to stay and reasons to leave, reasons to stay would have more on the list. So what I would encourage is to plan in advance on how you might respond in different situations. And you might think, what do you mean plan in advance? But you know, when you get into a crisis situation, you got fight, flight, freeze, right? So if you have a plan in your mind, it can be really helpful, because you've already rehearsed something in your head and you know how to respond in whatever situation that you're in. It's really important to remember as well, though, that you can't stop the perpetrator's abuse.
Right.
A lot of people think they can. You know, a lot of people stay for that reason. Oh, you just want to help the person. No, you're the only one that can help.
It's the savior mindset. Yeah, you want to save them and save you. Exactly. You know, if I save them, it will save me. No.
It doesn't work like that. Only the abuser can stop the abuse, because it's their responsibility.
Right.
Okay?
So never your fault.
Yeah, it's never your fault. But you can do things to perhaps try like keep yourself a bit safer. So I would suggest keep important numbers on your phone and on paper, because the amount of times I've had situations where clients have not been able to get the phone because perpetrators have taken their phone or smashed up their phone or whatever. So I would say keep important numbers on your phone and on paper. If you're going to have the name of a domestic abuse agency in your phone, then I would suggest saving it under a completely different name. Right. If the abuser is, you know, the kind that will go through your phone and you have no privacy in that sense, if he or she sees domestic abuse service, then that's not going to go down well. So use a different name.
That's true.
Yeah, and important numbers: GP, your children's school, family, friends, solicitor, whatever. Teach your children how to call 999. I know that's a sad one. You know, you don't want to have to teach your children to do that. But teach them to do that, how to say their full name, the address, telephone number. The amount of cases that we've had where children have actually called the police, you know, because mum's at the bottom of the stairs with blood coming out of her head. So it's important to teach your children how to do that if you can. But if you don't have children, maybe it's just you and the perpetrator. Or maybe the perpetrator doesn't even live with you, but they come to your property. If you have neighbors that you can trust, then you might want to share what's happening with them and ask them to call the police if they hear anything. And that happens quite a lot. Some people have signs, like they might put a particular plant pot in the window as an indication that they need help. You know, if the plant pot's not there, then it's cool. But if the plant pot's there, then that's a sign to your neighbor, whoever.
Yeah, I mean, you just make something that is safe for you. That you recognize is safe for you, but is a signal to the outside world. And we actually do have a question. This one's actually on the phone. It's they want to know if men suffer from abuse too, and of course that is a yes. And if there's there's a word for women for safety, would there be a word for men if to call and go to somewhere to seek safety?
So if you went to Boots, for example, and said, "Can I speak to Annie?" If you're a man, that applies to you as well. So there's no different word for male victims and women victims.
Adam. So you say, "Can I speak to Adam?" If it was me.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Yes, men do suffer from domestic abuse as well. They definitely do experience it. 1 in 6 men will experience domestic abuse in their lifetime. 1 in 4 for women. Globally, it'll be 1 in 3 for women. But throughout this discussion, I have been, I've tried my best to not say, he in terms of perpetrator or
yeah.
So I've been saying victim, survivor, perpetrator, abuser. The fact is, the majority of victims are women, though. That's just the statistics.
That's reality. That's the fact.
Exactly. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that men do not suffer from domestic abuse. There are organizations for men where they can get support. But yeah, it definitely does happen to them as well.
Yes, sadly, they would say the past 10 years, there's been a lot more cases of male abuse. Just, I'm not going to say that word because I'm going to get attacked if I even mention that word, and some people are going to get upset. So I won't even mention that word. It begins with F. I'm not going to mention it. So that the women have now taken back. You're like, you're not going to be doing this to me, or I'm angry. Women are in a lot more higher, powerful jobs, so they're being stressed, with things like this, and they're taking it out. You actually have more partners that are happier to be stay-at-home dads and look after the children and do whatever. But in this capacity, some of them have experienced abuse. So there's the abuse is abuse. It doesn't matter who's doing it, whether it's the male, the female, or even it's a child, whatever. Because domestic violence also, some people don't realize can be encountered from a child abusing a parent. And that's something that people don't often recognize. And I've had cases like in that,
it's a whole nother.
It's a whole nother ball game. It's so, it's high today, but it is out there, and it's just a matter of no matter what the scenario, you do not have the right to be abused. You have the right to be safe. You have the right to be whole, and you have the right to be at peace within your own home or in your car or in your environment. It is not for somebody to come and try and take away your freedom, to take away from you the best in your health. Okay. So I just want to, put it out there to you. There are many organizations that are there to support. I'm always putting these details forward. And there's the simple ones, of course, the standard like the victim support, but there are other niche market ones that deal with certain things. Now, also, I want you to know to be safe and to feel secure, even if I know there has been transgender violence, that needs to be known. That abuse is there. There is a safe space for you. If you're in a homosexual relationship, there's a safe space for you. It doesn't matter who you are. You have a right to be safe. No one has the right to abuse you, harm you, disrespect you, and take advantage of you. That's a no. And that's why, we do this. It's stop the abuse. It has to stop. And that's why, as well, I keep reiterating, let's not hide these things in our faith-based institutions. Let's not keep protecting perpetrators. That's the wrong way round. We're supposed to be protecting victims, not perpetrators. That makes no sense. If you're a perpetrator, you don't need protecting. You're the one doing the mess. The victim needs protecting. So let's look at that.
And it doesn't mean that we have to, throw the perpetrator to the wolves in terms of, because I mean part of Christianity and believing in God is that we do believe that Christ can change. Christ can come into your life and Christ can change. With perpetrators, it's very difficult for them to change. It's very hard. But I, as a Christian, I cannot sit here and think and say, well, do you know what? You're just hopeless, and nothing can ever.
And that's not my right to do. I didn't make you. I couldn't tell you you're hopeless. That's not my job.
I think
church, I do advocate for counselling, and I do advocate for you going to get support on your emotional well-being, so that you can then know how to be more cognitive of how to behave and react when you feel a certain way, and not to take it out on the nearest and dearest to you.
Exactly. That's and I think as leaders in church and stuff, they need to be able to do that honestly and openly, like send perpetrators for help, Obviously, you can't force people, but you have to hold them to account. You can't shove it under the carpet, because if you have a chance to help them, you're actually then helping the victim.
Yeah, and any other victims. See,
and
that's another issue we had. Remember, we often just say, oh, we don't do that here. Okay, let's move you along. You go somewhere else. It's not going to happen here. Okay, everybody's happy in this situation, and we're going to move
to church. And
you know, even in one of the cases I saw just on a documentary about 3 months ago, what had happened is that it was only when this last victim decided to speak out that then when they put his name and something in the papers, other victims came from other locations to say that they had encountered this same thing. So, you know, speaking out doesn't only save you and help you to speak your truth to empowerment, you could actually be saving a life of another. Exactly. You could actually, because oftentimes the perpetrator escalates their violence, escalates in their abuse. It starts off a small thing, but the more that they get into that mindset, it escalates. And sadly, many times the finale of the mindset of someone in that way is to take the life of the other, so that no one else can have them, or they won't be able to live or be happy. So we have to really speak out about these things.
And it's important to remember as well, just one more thing, Anastasia, is a lot of people might blame themselves for getting into that kind of relationship. Like, oh, how come I didn't see the signs? Or, you know, this was so obvious, because other people might tell them, you know, oh, well, if you were praying hard enough, God would have showed you that this wasn't the right relationship or whatever. But abusers are very charming. They're very charming individuals. You know, you wouldn't arrange a second date with someone who punched you in the face on the first date.
What? Have mercy.
Exactly. You know, it's funny actually. I used that analogy with a young person, and they said, "Yes, I would arrange a second date so I could punch them back." And I was like, "That wasn't the point. Wasn't the point." But you see what I mean? They're usually charming. They usually have to give off that persona. Otherwise, you would stay far away from them usually. So it's not your fault, you know, and it's something that builds up over time. And it starts with emotional, psychological, like we discussed in the beginning. So it's it's not your fault for ending up in that relationship.
Well, Lorraine, I want to say thank you so much for being here this evening, afternoon. It has been a pleasure. I mean, people, not all of them have said anything here. They've sent me texts and, you know, things like that. I put up on the screen as well, so that anyone who's interested, who wants to join this group to find out more how to support your faith-based institution, it's here, the URL's there. On Facebook, go to groups, it's Domestic Abuse and the Church. So this topic is sadly not going to go away. So, you know, I'm going to be shouting from the rafters, the rooftops, on my boat, on my whatever, until there's nothing left, so I can encourage and support and empower you to do what is right. Do what is right for you, do what is right for others. So thank you so much, Lorraine. Just let them know where they can get access to your organization, what the I'm tongue-tied. The website or whatever, sorry.
I'll post it now. Let me just do that now.
Okay. So that they can get access and have a look and see what more. And in actual fact, you did. You posted it to me. It's fine. I'll take it. What happens, guys, is that you know, Lorraine is one of those amazing women that is here to support and encourage. And with her organization, if you work for an organization and you would like to maybe put this support for some of you, for your team or your staff or colleagues, this is an area that she can come in and support your team. So I've put up on site the www.theniva, actually I say Niva, but it's not Niva. You say it. You said it differently.
You know what? It's both. You know, people say it how they want. So I say never.
Never. Okay. So,
It's all right. Maybe neither rolls off the tongue, so maybe I need to change that.
so the neighborproject.co.uk, and I'm gonna give you guys this one here as well for her email that you can contact her directly. Did it? Oh, have I? Oh, no, I haven't posted it yet. That's why it's not showing. There. So, and there you go. So you can also email info@theneighborproject.co.uk. I think I said it right this time. Thank you all so much for being here and spending this time with us. OMG will be back next week with another topic. If you have a story and you desire, you're ready, you're at a place in your life now, you want to speak your truth to empowerment, you know that Animist Thing is willing and open to hear you share your story. What's your story? Talk to me. Let us know. Oh, and just a final plug before we go. We're letting you know that my new 7 steps to healing begins next Sunday. So any of you that want to go through that process of the 7 steps to healing, so you can become that, but you live your best blessed life, and you are blossom, because we all are blossom. We all blossom. Okay, then let me know, DM me, contact me, email, and I'll send you the information. And that course starts next week. So the 7 steps to healing and living your best life. Thank you guys so much for sharing and spending time and hanging out with us. It has been a pleasure. And you know, as always, stay safe and be blessed. Bye-bye.